Welcome to the HindmanCast, a podcast of the Hindman Settlement School, where we explore the history, culture, and people that make the Hindman Settlement School what it is today, and how this historic institution will continue to serve its mission of celebrating heritage and changing lives in Central Appalachia. I'm Corey Terry. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the HindmanCast, and this month we're going to kind of go back in time a little bit as we catch up with our archive recovery director, Sarah Insalaco, who recently interviewed someone who has a rich history with the settlement school. Sarah, who spends a lot of time in our archives, recovering everything from the flood, but also curating that stuff to create very popular social media posts that we put out. And during all of her research for such things, that she came across several pieces of documents and information from somebody named Loren Kramer, who coordinated the Bookmobile here back in the late 50s and also became the recreation coordinator here. And she managed to get a hold of him and brought him on to the HindmanCast to have a conversation, to talk a little bit about his history, how he managed to end up here at the settlement school, and what things were like running the Bookmobile and the recreation director and all of that good stuff. So we're going to waste no time and get right into the interview with Sarah.
My name is Sarah Insalaco. I am the archivist here at Hindman Settlement School. I started my role here in August 2023, about a year after the flood had hit. My goals and my current job is to recover all the materials that were lost in the flood. So that is why I'm here. But I also I got my bachelor's degree in history from Marymount Manhattan College, as well as a master's degree in archival management and history from Simmons University in Boston.
Oh, great.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Sounds
if you
good.
just do you want to talk a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and just a little bit about your background, like where you were born and raised. What role did reading have? Why did you want to go into the Bookmobile service? So if you just want to start from there, that'd be great.
Okay. I was born in California, and my father was a Methodist minister, and just after World War II, we took part in a cooperative farm in the Central Valley near Modesto. And that, I would say, was the beginning of my understanding of the big wide world. Partly the role that nature and farms, etc., play in our life, and the role of interacting with other people and understanding better, experiencing how they look at things, and that sort of appreciation for other people's perspectives. By the time I was 20, I'd had 2 years of college and not going anywhere. So I decided to find a good job, and the American Friends Service Committee offered contact with the Hindman Settlement School, who was looking for somebody to drive the county bookmobile. And that's why I got to Hindman. And it changed my life. Hindman Settlement School is where I met my future wife. And we had later 2 children who are now very active in health services. And where I became acquainted with Berea College, where I continued after I left the bookmobile job and finished a teaching degree from Berea. So Hindman uh, weighs high in my view of life. Um, is that enough about?
Oh yeah. I just want to say Hindman has a way of making its mark on everyone's life. Like
Is
it's touched everybody who works here, even everybody who even stepped foot on campus. We hosted an NCCC team here, which is like a spinoff of the CCC, so the Civilian Conservation Corps. And they came and did work, and a lot of them, they weren't from Appalachia, they weren't from the South. They just they did this for like service. And so it's they all said the exact same thing. They were here for 6 weeks, and they're like, I didn't know how much of an impact Hindman had on everybody. And so it's like, I think it's just the atmosphere, and most importantly, I think the people also make it the way it is. Everybody that all my coworkers here are just, we all say it's like, we'll probably die here. That's like what, because it's just that much of an incredible place and incredible opportunities, from whether or not you're in foodways to archiving. There's just always something here. It's an amazing place, and I'm very grateful to be here. Um, but while I understand that when I was going through stuff in the archive, I actually found a number of old papers that you had while you were here.
oh,
Yeah,
good.
we found a lot of the physical education games that you had students do with the various classes and grade levels in the different schools around the county. I know we're here to talk about the bookmobile, but that was one thing I wanted to talk to you about, is like, what were you doing with the physical education part with the schools as well?
Okay, that was in 1963,
Mm-hmm.
whereas my bookmobile time was 1956 to 58.
Okay.
So I went to Berea College and I was out doing other stuff for a year and a half or 2 years. And then I came back for a semester in 63. Um, at that point, Raymond McLean, excuse me, the director, offered me a position that was called recreation director,
Okay.
which turned out to be different from previous recreation director work, which had worked with the folk dancing and folk singing and that sort of thing. So while I was fumbling around with how to provide some sort of service, uh, I started off doing some tumbling with the students in different schools. That didn't go over too well. So Mr. McLean said, what about collecting old time games, games that have come up through the generations here in Knott County? And I thought that was a wonderful idea. And I presented that to all the schools that I went to, and universally they were excited about it. So they started making lists and talking with their parents and grandparents about what sort of games there was. Uh, so that's how the collection uh, got formed. It took years to get it into a usable form.
Mhm.
I apologize that it wasn't immediately available, but uh, we finally got it in a booklet of games, which
Yep. Mhm.
you probably have,
Mhm.
because uh, a copy was made when I visited later. Um, those games turned out to be a combination of old time games, traditional games, and newer games, uh, partly because Hindman sends out leadership in all sorts of activities. And so those of us who are working for the settlement in itinerant situations bring our own games from outside the region. So it was a combination of new and old.
Okay.
You probably noticed that in the collection.
Yeah, we do have the booklet, but we also have like all the students who actually like wrote down the games and the art and everything like that. We still have it, and it's in
Wonderful.
yeah. So the way that we have sorted out the archive is that we'll have like different collections, and so your specific papers will be under the traditional arts, under the education part of it, because we noticed that there were a lot of obviously Eastern Kentucky roots in the stuff that the students wrote. So we're like, okay, this belongs in here, and that's how we do it. So we
Well,
definitely
oh, good.
we have a Loren Kramer uh series in the collection. So we're very, very excited. So we were very excited to receive your pictures that you sent us. So
Oh, good.
I was like, I knew who you were. So now putting a face to the name has been amazing. So we've been very, very fortunate to make this happen. So I wanted to ask, um, besides, so California to Eastern Kentucky is a major geographical, cultural change. I was just wondering, what, when you first heard about the opportunity in the Bookmobile, what were your assumptions of Appalachia and Eastern Kentucky when you took the job?
Well, the first thing that struck me was now here's a region and maybe a culture that I know nothing about, and I would love to get acquainted. Uh, and it also, uh, as I mentioned, I had gotten word of the job through the American Friends Service Committee, and that was because as a conscientious objector, I was obligated to serve a minimum of 2 years in service in some situation, and so it met that goal. Uh, so those two things together worked very well. I had no idea what I was getting into, and so lucky that I did. Um, one little point: when I first came, I got a bus to Hazard, and uh, they said there weren't any regular buses going to Hindman, uh, so I got a taxi, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
to get to Hindman. And they let me out in front of the courthouse, and I found out what direction to go to the settlement, and that passed. Um, excuse me here. And I passed a bar and grill, which was almost on the corner there. And out of the bar and grill came music of uh, uh, Elvis Presley.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought to myself, now this is quite a combination.
It
Because
is.
obviously what I was anticipating and so far had seen was quite different from the average pop uh, culture. So I thought this is going to be fun in the combination of cultures.
Definitely.
And there's no doubt about that. I sometimes, looking back on it, wondered uh, how people who grew up in Knott County felt about us outsiders coming in, and was determined to do what I could to learn from them and try to provide what I was understanding as being useful for them. And of course, uh, most everybody, or a lot of people, were very supportive of any kind of educational progress, and a bookmobile was a good thing. So every school I went to, the kids, the teachers, and sometimes the community members uh, welcomed me, and uh, were glad to see it coming.
Yeah, so I actually wanted to talk a little bit about the people who would have been here when you were here. I know that Elizabeth Watts retired in the 50s, but I know she was very much actively involved even afterwards, like on the board. Do you have any memories of her as a person, or do you remember meeting her and what she was like?
Yes, I did. She had retired about a month before I got there, but was very much in the process of transferring the leadership over to Raymond McLean.
Mhm.
And so I saw her in action in that way and was pretty impressed.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, I didn't get to know her personally, uh, but that first contact was impressive.
Yeah. I've only ever read and seen and heard great things about her. So knowing someone that had met her personally was just like
Mm.
one of the top of on the top of my list of things. She actually she passed away at like the age she was over 100 years old. And she's actually buried with James Still right at the chapel on the hill on campus.
Is that
So,
right?
yep,
I
yep,
didn't realize that, or I'd
yep.
forgotten.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she and Mr. Still are buried up on the hill. That's another question. I know James Still worked on campus sporadically on and off, but did you ever get the privilege to meet Mr. Still?
Uh, Not only did I get to meet him, but he was my supervisor.
Oh, that's amazing.
The bookmobile. Well, let's see. You may know, but I'll point out that. Uh, well, first of all, Mr. Still is a hero in my mind.
He's amazing. Yeah.
Uh, when he first, from what I've read, when he first came on campus or to the settlement or Knott County in 1932, maybe something like that, uh, he started carrying in boxes books to schools,
Yep.
or maybe it was a year or two later. I'm not sure, but he saw the great desire and need for books getting in people's hands. And of course, as a writer, he knew a bit about books.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, and then eventually became the librarian for the Hindman Settlement School library, which also served the, uh, the high school
Hmm.
and the general public to some degree.
Yeah.
Uh, so I very much, looking back on it, I don't think I realized what a fabulous opportunity I had here, and I didn't make as much use of his wonderful experience and skills and talent uh, that I should have. But I fully appreciated working with him.
Yeah, I've only heard good things about Mr. Still. Like his work's amazing. He to me he's kind of like Elizabeth Watts and Mike Mullins, who was the executive director for a long time here as well. They're just omnipresent. Like any corner of campus you go to, like the influence that they had on campus is astounding. And so meeting people who were very much alive and worked with them personally is just something that I think is just so crucial to keep their spirits alive on campus
Yeah,
and onwards, like not just in Appalachia, but just the community surrounding in Kentucky central and Kentucky itself and other places where their work has left a significant influence on.
right.
So when you were doing the bookmobile, what was were there like any authors that you would push towards people, or like would you read the books before you would tell them in case somebody had a question about what the premise of the book was about? Like how did what was like a day-to-day duty that you would do with the bookmobile?
Well, to get started, I browsed through a bunch of books, especially ones that seemed to be popular, so that I was more acquainted with what was on people's minds. Uh, I I never had time to really read a lot of books, which is too bad. uh, because I probably could have done a much better job uh, sharing them if I'd known them better. Mr. Still, at one point, towards the end of my time there, said, "Well, I guess the biggest thing that you brought to this job was a high energy in getting books in people's hands, because I did get to the schools more often, I think, than any of the few previous bookmobile drivers. So I'm proud of that part. But as far as knowing the literature, I was weak. I'm sorry."
It's it's good. It's all good. I understand. There's that saying, too many books, too little time. So
Yep.
I understand that my to be read list is very long. So I very much understand that. So you said you went to the schools, but also did you travel around, like have like a different route or so? Like how far around the county did you go?
Okay, at the time I was there, I ended up servicing almost entirely one, two, three, and four room schools.
Okay.
And at that time there were, well, I remember there being 64. I noticed in something I had written I had 67, but anyhow, there were a lot. And uh, so I set up, with Mr. Still's help, uh, a route which took 3 weeks to make the rounds
Okay.
uh, of those 64 schools. And I would, if I recall right, I only went out 4 days a week if the weather permitted. And then the other day was working in the library with the collection.
Hmm.
Um, so, um, yeah, I don't know if the papers you have, I have a copy of uh, my route, and I'll be glad to send that to you if that interests you.
I
Um,
have not come across the route yet, but we still have stuff in freezers right now. So as soon as we take them out of the freezer, who knows what we'll find. But if you would like to scan it or send a picture of it just so I could look at it, appreciate it immensely.
Actually, uh, at my age, I'm not going to use what I have, and my family have not had that experience, and so don't have any particular reason to use it. So I think if if it can be helpful to you, I'll send my folder to you.
Oh, that would be fantastic. That's a choice. That's a decision that you can make. We will gladly accept it, but it's all in your time. If you would like to, that's totally fine to do.
All right. Uh, as you probably well know, at that time in the 50s and into the 60s, the well, first of all, Knott County is at the headwaters of every stream
Yes.
that flows in it. And partly because of that and its elevation a little higher, uh, it got missed by the railroads, it got missed by the highways, and so there were not uh, travelable roads in the majority of the land. Uh, what what I called travelable.
Yes.
I'd had a lot of experience in driving off road
Hmm.
in both uh, mountain uh, camping and traveling and on my farm, our farm. So I enjoyed that more than the highways, and so I was really satisfied trying to get from the pavement to the school, whichever school it was, and obviously that involved uh, going through muddy roads and dirt roads and across creeks and up creek beds at times with the bookmobile. Uh, the bookmobile idea that the state provide each county with a bookmobile was a wonderful idea, I think. Just
Yes. Absolutely.
so good for Kentucky. Uh, however, the folks in Frankfort weren't thinking of preparing a bookmobile for our roads in Knott County. And therefore, it was a struggle at times
Hmm.
uh, to get across the creek, to go up the creek beds, to go through the mud and so forth. I remember one time I got stuck in the mud, and fortunately there was a field uh, within sight where a farmer was plowing with his mule, and he saw that I was having a lot of trouble, and he came over and we talked a little bit, and he went and got his mule and pulled me out, and I was so pleased. Another time, I guess it was in the winter because I think I was coming around the corner on a dirt gravel road, and uh, there was a sheet of ice across the road. And even though I was going very carefully, the bookmobile was sliding towards the bank. And it finally stopped when one wheel went off the edge, uh, and I guess caught on the bank with the axle.
Hmm.
I very gently got out and started thinking, now let's see, what's the next step? How do I get out of this? And right about then, a coal truck came along, and uh, I'd been waving to the coal drivers, and so they didn't seem to be unfriendly to the idea of a bookmobile. And this guy was so helpful. He had a chain. He got in front of me and hooked up and pulled me off of that edge. Uh, so I got saved again. But on the whole, I was impressed with how well the vehicle did manage to get up and down the banks. Obviously, when the water was high, I couldn't cross the
Yeah.
creek. Uh, Sometimes I would have to just let it go. Sometimes I was able to. I carried a backpack, and I would put a series of books in the backpack, um, and walk across the swinging bridge and up the branch to whatever school. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
So yeah,
yeah.
that's amazing. And thinking about, we have a lot of photos in the collection of various bookmobiles and vehicles stuck in Eastern Kentucky red clay mud. So it's a very, I think it was a very common thing to have happened in that area in the time. So I was picturing that photo as you were describing the catastrophe of getting through some of these
Yeah.
areas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you would get to the schools, like, were the students generally very excited to see that the bookmobile was there, and like their eyes light up and they got to like pick whatever they wanted, and what was their reactions usually?
Almost all of them, that was the case. There were a few who, and looking back on it, I think one of our policies was if they lost the book or destroyed it somehow, we asked them to pay for it. Of course, it was only a couple of dollars or so, but a couple of dollars could be quite a bit,
Yeah.
especially the kids.
Hmm.
And it occurred to me that some of the rebuffs, which were very, very rare, that I got were because of experiences like that. They didn't want to be obligated to. Uh, and then there were some of those who, well, no, I was going to say, uh, didn't read well enough and so didn't especially consider it worth their time to bother with books. But
Hmm.
on the other hand, most schools had some sort of book report system,
Hmm.
even if it was picture books.
Yep.
But yes, they were almost always very excited, and the teachers appreciated it because it could expand their curriculum a great deal.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think reading opens so many doors to so many worlds,
Exactly.
and I think it's great that the bookmobile program and even the pack horse library was such a great idea for this area in particular, for those who are homebound and for those who really didn't have the means to buy books. So I think
Right.
it was an absolute great program, and I think it was fantastic.
Um, I might say too that while the schools were the biggest focus for the bookmobile, because none of these schools had libraries,
Mhm.
uh, the summer program was quite different and provided a service uh, quite different, but also very valuable because that was more focused on adults. Uh, we would uh, we would go to we'd set up regular schedules at post offices or country stores, uh, or in some cases maybe a church. Uh, uh, or the schoolhouse, even though the schoolhouse usually wasn't open during the summer, and serve the adults primarily, but kids also. So that was a good chance to get to know the families more.
And that was actually another question I have. Do you remember any individuals or families that still stick with you to this day?
Well, I'll have to say, okay, I'll give you a little background. When I got to Hindman, I hadn't had any sense of direction in my college experience. Well, by the end of my 2 years with Hindman Settlement School and the Bookmobile, it was clear to me I wanted to go towards education.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what took me to Berea, which I did. I got a teaching degree. And uh, the fall of 63, after the semester where I did the game collection, um, Beckham Combs, the superintendent of schools,
Mm-hmm.
had a school for me to teach in, and that was Lick Branch of
Okay.
Ball.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Do you know Lick Branch?
Yes, I've heard of Lick Branch.
You,
Yeah,
you heard it.
yeah,
Yeah, it's a fabulous community, or it was. It does not exist anymore,
yeah,
thanks to mountaintop removal.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, but starting in the fall of 63 until December 65, I taught at Lick Branch, and that was such a fabulous experience. I could not have imagined a better community to have been in. They were supportive of the school, they were supportive of the kids, and uh, they were very strong in church membership, which meant that there was almost no drinking on the holler, and that meant a whole lot of opportunities for
Yes.
kids and for families and so forth that wouldn't have been available. Um, Although I probably got on the wrong side of oh dear, what's the summer camp? Biblical summer
Oh,
camp.
Camp Nathaniel.
Yes, Camp
Yeah.
Nathaniel. They had a regular program of uh, going to the schools and uh, spending little time with the students in memorizing scriptures.
Hmm.
And based on, I guess, the number of scriptures or their understanding of the scriptures or something like that, they would invite uh, kids from the hollers to come to Camp Nathaniel for the summer. Well, I thought that was a fine program, but I was upset that they were taking school time to do it. Uh, I was raised with the idea of, excuse me, with the idea of separation of church and state. And so I said, well, you're welcome to come after school, but let's not take school time.
Yeah.
They didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
So I never heard anything from the families on Lick Branch that they were sorry to miss out on Camp Nathaniel. Maybe there are other ways they could get to Camp Nathaniel. I don't know.
Oh,
But I,
yeah. Because I'm trying
I,
to think where Lick Branch was versus Camp Nathaniel's out towards the Perry County line.
yes,
And Lick Branch was a little bit farther up into Knott County, and
it,
so probably just transportation its way, and
that could be. Yeah,
that
yeah,
I would just think the sheer distance and the route to Lick Branch was probably not very accessible to, especially from the Perry County line, before the Hal Rogers Parkway was built. So that's
Yeah,
probably the
right.
main reasons why it
Well,
was.
although I was certainly impressed, a group of the fathers on Lick Branch
Mhm.
worked uh, with the Pennsylvania Railroad up in
Mhm.
Illinois and Ohio, maybe Indiana. Yeah. um, and would come home every weekend, and so they were used to going to service, finding services.
Yeah.
So I didn't think about it much, but later on I wondered how they felt about it. But they didn't say anything to me, and I think
Yeah.
they would have.
Yeah. Possibly. Yeah. So I wanted to like when you look back on your years as the bookmobile driver, what do you think or what do you hope was that your biggest impact on the communities that you served?
Hmm. I would say just exposing kids, especially, and other members of the communities uh, to books and the joy of reading and so forth. Uh, I can't think of a specific thing otherwise,
Yeah.
but just the general service that the bookmobile offers.
Yeah. And so let's say what do you think that people should remember about the bookmobile services? Or what would you want
Oh,
people to remember and the impact that it had on not just Appalachia but the state of Kentucky in general?
um, I think people year by year realized, well, more and more people realize how important education was. And uh, so the bookmobile helped them realize how important uh, the service of the schools in general could be, and uh, that the, of course, soon within a decade or so, roads were coming in and consolidation took place,
Yes.
and that was both welcomed and feared.
Yeah. I understand. I understand. Yeah.
But I think the greater awareness uh, of opportunities out there, and what was required to take advantage of opportunities, uh, uh, grew on the county.
Yeah. Definitely. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um I know here in the late 70s to early 80s, that's when like the big condensing of the schools
Yeah.
happened. Hindman High School, which is just the limestone, the limestone building that's here, um, that was condensed into Knott County Central. And so all the other areas. So now there's one big high school, like right in like the back corner of Hindman. So that's where all the students go now. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
really? Really? There isn't a high school in Car Creek or
They all
uh,
condensed into Knott County Central High School. There is one way out called Cordia. And
Cordy?
Cordia
Yeah.
is from what I understand, a K through 12 school
Yeah.
in that area. But the elementary schools are still around. Car Creek Elementary is still around. Hindman Elementary is still around. I said Car Creek. And a couple of other ones are in the area that are still very much thriving, and a
Uh-huh.
good population of schools
Yeah.
are
Yeah.
are here. Good collective, good teachers. And
Uh,
some of the
They,
teachers there are really good friends of mine, so that's why I
ah,
boast about the teachers at the elementary schools and the high school. They're very passionate about their students, and so
uh,
it's nice to see that the passion has not left these hills. So they're
good.
here and they're staying and fighting
Yay.
to keep it going.
Yeah,
Um,
keep it going. Yeah.
and so my last question is did you want to mention anything else that I haven't brought up, or is there any stories that you wanted to share that you really wanted to? You are more than welcome.
Let's see here. I had oh yeah, a little outline. Let's see if anything hasn't been covered. Uh, oh, I started saying and didn't finish when in 1954 when the state uh, provided bookmobiles to each county for the first time. Uh, at least in Knott County, uh, the way that it was set up was three parts of oversight
Okay.
for the bookmobile. I don't know, maybe you're aware of that. The state would offer supplies and some books every year, and that was very important. The Knott County Board of Education agreed to pay for the cost of the vehicle maintenance, which, since the vehicle wasn't really too good for our roads, on our roads, became a little expensive, I think. And then the Hindman Settlement School agreed to hire uh, a driver librarian and provide housing for the library.
Oh, nice.
So it was a triple oversight, which was wonderful. That sort of coordination. Let's see. One thing I will say, I was there, as I said, for 2 years driving the bookmobile, and no one had driven it more than 1 year previously. Uh, it started in '54, 2 years earlier, and 7 different drivers were involved before my time, uh, which meant that there was no good consistency there in schedules, uh, in procedures, and all that sort of thing, other than uh, the policies that Mr. Still uh, provided and oriented the new drivers to. Um, so I did have the advantage of a little more consistency throughout those 2 years. Uh, and yeah, let's see here. Uh, we think of libraries nowadays in terms of thousands or hundreds of thousands of books, although today it isn't books as much as uh, uh, internet connections and so
Yeah.
forth,
Yes.
databases and all that sort of thing. But at the time that I was there, the bookmobile collection included about 3,000 juvenile books and about 2,000 adult books. And while that doesn't sound like much, it kept me busy. So it was a small but, I think, wonderful collection that Mr. Still had a lot to say about.
Oh, yes. So you being from in California, like born and raised for you, what were the stereotypes that you were told of Appalachia, and was it what you expected, or was it what the outside world was telling you, or were you just completely dumbfounded that it wasn't like that at all?
Um, that's a good point. I was very fortunate to grow up in a family and a people community that uh, recognized that uh, governments, especially big governments, don't always present uh, what you see on the ground
Yes.
uh, in communities, and the media followed that, and it still does, unfortunately.
Yes.
Uh, so I was well aware that stereotypes were probably inaccurate.
Okay.
What the media was saying, and how the government uh, talked about uh, different sections of the nation and so forth. Uh, so I had the advantage of uh, looking forward to finding out what the truth was, and uh, experiencing it for myself
Mhm.
instead of depending on somebody else's interpretation. So I was well aware of the stereotypes and still am,
Yeah.
uh, uh,
Yeah.
but wanted to avoid them as much as
Absolutely.
possible.
Yeah.
And I suppose because I didn't grow up in the culture, there were times when I failed that, and I regret that, but I tried to avoid it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just always like it's just one question I like to ask people who didn't grow up in the culture, didn't really, or just didn't know have anything, just the expectations of what pop culture perceives Appalachia as. So that's usually my final my final question. But if
Um,
you have, do you have any questions or anything that you want to ask?
uh, is there some way I could get a copy of this interview?
Absolutely. Yeah. I believe this will go on air in June. That is when it's slated for. But as soon as it's available, I can send you the link for it.
That would be wonderful.
That's been
Thank you.
wonderful. Yeah,
And
absolutely. And it's been such a pleasure talking with you, cuz like I went through like your work setting it out to dry and clean it, and I was like, well, I wonder who this person was. Like this is great cuz like obviously worked on so many aspects. So it was great to receive all your photos in the flash drive and stuff, and just knowing that you were still around to do this interview. It was just great because unfortunately, not a lot of people who worked here in that the height of HSS are around anymore. So
yeah,
it's just been
right.
fantastic. I just saw it was just a great opportunity to talk to you about this, everything, and I'm very appreciative for everything.
Well, thank you, Sarah, for the opportunity to discuss this. It brings back wonderful memories,
I'm
and
so glad.
I while I'm not in Southern Appalachia now, uh, I visit parts of it at times, and every time I drive into the mountains, all of a sudden it feels like home.
Yeah, yeah. I say that a lot. Like my family's just from the county over in Letcher County, and every time growing up, coming back here, I'd be like, yeah, this
Yep,
is home. This is this
this is
is
home.
this
Yeah,
this is home. That's how I feel very much every time, and I think you would be hard pressed to find a person who doesn't feel that way.
yeah, I think you're
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, great. Well,
yeah.
thank you very much, Sarah, and
Thank you.
And thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Loren, for coming on the podcast and sharing a little bit about your story and your time here at the settlement school. It was great to hear your stories and great to hear a little bit about what life and work was like here at the settlement. And I was especially interested to hear about his time teaching at the Lick Branch School because I actually grew up just down the road from Lick Branch, and I remember fondly my papaw pointing out and telling me where the Lick Branch School was and where he went to school as a little boy. And as a matter of fact, I almost died there at Lick Branch one time in a four-wheeler crash. So that's very, very impactful in my mind, Lick Branch, down there in the Cary community of Knott County. And hey, maybe you are interested yourself in coming and working in our archives and exploring our collection, and digging in deep to these stories like Sarah has found here with Loren, and getting to know a little bit more personally the history here of the settlement school. We're still very much active in our recovery efforts of our archive collection, and are going to be soon moving into digitization of the records and all of that good stuff. So Sarah would definitely appreciate any help that she can get if you are interested in coming and helping her out and exploring our collections here. And you can contact her at sarahI@Hindman.org. Do not forget the I, otherwise you will email Sarah Kate and not Sarah Insalaco. Also, summer is coming up upon us, and we have a lot of stuff coming up this summer, so be sure to go check out all of our events coming up at Hindman.org on our events page. We got the Writers Workshop coming up, of course. We also got Ironwood Writers Studio for the young adults in June, as well as our monthly square dances, our concert series, Gather and Grow, the free dinner and concert, as well as so much more. So please go check that out and see how you can get plugged in and involved here at the Hindman Settlement School. And until next time, I'm Corey Terry, and we'll see you then.
The HindmanCast is brought to you by the faithful and generous supporters of the Hindman Settlement School. For over 100 years, we've been celebrating heritage and changing lives in Central Appalachia. If you're interested in supporting the work of Hindman Settlement School, you can go to our website at www.hindman.org, or you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram at the handle @HindmanSchool.